Hi everyone, Kendall here with a bonus video for you this week. I was working on a small wall hanging and avoiding a million and one other things I should be doing. And I decided that I would face it instead of bind it. Now, if you don't know what that means, stay tuned, come with me, and I'll show you how I do it. To begin with facing a quilt rather than using a binding, we need to have 4 strips that are approximately 3 to 4 inches shorter than the edges of the quilted top, and 4 squares anywhere between 4.5 and 5 inches in size. We're going to take all of our 2.5 inch strips and press them in half, just as we would for a normal binding. We'll then also take all of our squares and press those in half along the diagonal to create half square triangle units. With all of our pieces now prepared, we'll pull back in our little quilt top / wall hanging that we're going to face, and we start by placing our half square triangle units that we created in the corners, lining up those raw edges with the raw edge of your quilt. You can either pin this in place, or later you'll see me use my wonder clips, which I often forget that I have. Wonder clips are easier as it doesn't distort anything underneath, and you can just easily pull them off once you get to the sewing machine. So we'll place one of these triangle units on 2 of our corners here for now, and then we'll grab one of our strips and we'll line it up the best we can in the middle of our side, and you'll notice that the raw edges will be under those triangle units, or on top of the triangle units, sorry, and everything will be encased once we get this finished. So make sure when you place your folded strips on the side though that you have both of those raw edges facing out, just as you would with a normal binding. Attach those in place and we'll take that to the machine, and we will stitch our 1/4 inch seam allowance, or however big your seam allowance that you've allowed for is. You can see that on my little quilt top here I do have lots of points, and when I first sew this on it doesn't look like they match up, but the magic is revealed towards the end. We just need to repeat that same step now until we have all 4 sides of our facing sewn on. And I forgot to say before, which I think is obvious from the video, but maybe not, you need to attach this to the front of your quilt top. we have our facing strips sewn on all 4 sides to the front of our quilted top. We now just need to press all of those strips out. The triangles will stay in place, obviously. And once we've pressed all of those out, we just need to top stitch just next to where that is attached. And I'm sorry that I'm using black fabric and black thread. It was just the project that I'm doing. So we just need to top stitch along on the actual facing strip itself. And what this does is it stops the fabric rolling over once we get to later steps. And you will notice it is a technique from apparel making when you have the facing on the front of a blouse or dress. So we'll press all of our facing strips out away from the center, and then we'll take it to the machine and top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away on all 4 sides. Now that our top stitching is complete, here is where the magic happens. First, we need to trim the corners off, down to but not through the stitching where we cross over with our stitching from attaching the facing. So we'll clip off each 4 of those corners, and then we're going to turn this inside out and use some sort of a point turner to poke those corners out nice and sharp. And then make sure that all of the facing flips towards the back of our piece. And then we just need to press all of that into place. Rather vigorously isn't really the right word, but you really want to press this down and make sure that none of your facing fabric is visible at the front. The stay stitching or understitching that we did should help with that. And you'll see in a minute that my turning stick is just a big lead pencil, but I used what was within my reach. And so yeah, once we've got all of this done, we will press it into place using steam if we have to hold that down. And then we need to hand stitch the facing to the back of our project in the same way that we would hand stitch our binding down. You will notice that I started to press this over from the back, but I decided to turn it to the front so that I can make sure when I'm pressing this into place that none of that facing is showing. You won't get it 100% accurate, and that's fine. It really won't be that noticeable, and given that mine is black, it will just look like a shadow, which is really handy. Now, as I said, once we have all of this pressed down into place, we just need to hand stitch our facings down. Now at the top, leave the first 2 corners open, and in that way you can insert a dowel rod or some sort of stick and use that as a way to hang your completed quilt top once it's faced. And that, my friends, is as simple as facing a quilt can be. As you can see there, folks, the technique is a little bit more fussy than just a straight binding and involves hand stitching to have a seamless look on the front of your piece, but I think it's well worth it for small wall hangings and in instances where you don't want that extra frame of binding. I hope you give this method a try, and with that said, I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.